You finally answered. Mom's voice floated through the phone, heavy with that familiar guilt-laced tone. I've been calling you all day. My stomach twisted into knots. I was working, Mom. That was a lie. The truth was, I just couldn't handle another conversation where my needs were invisible. So, what are your plans for the holidays? She asked, her voice tinged with a scheming undertone that made my pulse quicken. The usual family thing, I guess, I murmured, hoping that would end the topic. Well, we're doing something different this year. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I got 4 tickets to see Bruce Springsteen. 3 nights in a row. The moment she said 4 tickets, my heart sank. I already knew I wasn't included. Am I coming too? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Well, about that, we have something important for you to do. My mouth went dry. What exactly? We need someone to stay with Grandma while we're at the concert. So, while you're all out having fun, you want me to stay over for 3 whole days to care for Grandma? Don't be so dramatic, Mom scoffed. You're always helping with Grandma anyway. And it's not like you have other plans, right? Rage bubbled up inside me, but I somehow kept my voice calm. Were you ever going to ask me? Or did you just assume I'd say yes like always? Of course, I thought you'd say yes. You've always been our dependable girl, always putting family first. Mom, I'm 34 years old, I said, my voice shaking. I deserve to decide how I spend my own time. My answer is no. The silence on the line was thick. Leah, don't be so selfish. This is a special trip for all of us. All of you except me, I shot back. My knuckles were white around the phone. I can't believe you're ruining our plans with your selfishness. My heart pounded in my ears. Selfish? You made all these plans without even asking me, assuming I'd sacrifice 3 days of my life. Isn't that selfish? That's enough. Your father will call you. Maybe he'll get through to you. Before she could hang up, I forced the words out. If you expect me to be your caregiver, don't expect me to come home at all. I wasn't sure if she even heard me before the line went dead. My relationship with my family had always been one-sided. Back in college, I missed study groups and even an important exam to attend family events. I canceled weekends with friends just to cheer on my younger brother, Ryan, at his soccer games. But everything truly changed when Grandma fell and broke her hip 2 years ago. While the surgery went smoothly, the recovery was brutal, and that's when the signs of dementia appeared. The doctors said the trauma likely accelerated her decline. My parents and Ryan, all living under the same roof, refused to help. We have jobs, they insisted. We're too busy. And then there was me living alone in a small apartment downtown, working remotely as a freelance editor. Naturally, they turned to me. Suddenly, I was the one managing Grandma's medications, driving her to doctor appointments, helping her bathe, and changing her clothes. Every day, I commuted 15 miles to my parents' suburban home to care for her. Leah, you've always had a special bond with Grandma, Mom would remind me sweetly. You wouldn't want to put her in a facility, would you? Of course not. But while I put my life on hold, my parents went on Caribbean cruises and Ryan and his wife took ski trips to Vermont. That phone call, though, that was my breaking point. That night, my apartment felt like a cage. I ignored the dozen calls from my parents. Ryan's text came through, Leah, think about what's best for the family. I let out a bitter laugh. In this family, what's best always meant Leah sacrifices everything. Curling up on the couch, I called my best friend, Natalie. Let me guess, she said as soon as she answered. They're trying to dump Grandma on you again. This time is different, I murmured. I told them no. Good for you, she said firmly. You've given enough. It's your turn to live your life. As I hung up, I felt the tightness in my chest ease just a little. For the first time, I had drawn a line. And for the first time, I was ready to hold it. You wouldn't seriously consider placing her in a home, would you? My mother's voice had that sly, guilt-pressing tone she'd mastered over the years. It was emotional manipulation at its finest. Of course, the thought of sending Grandma to assisted living was painful. But while I stayed behind as her caregiver, my parents jetted off on cruises, and my brother Jason and his wife were off skiing in Aspen. My world had ground to a halt. That night, my apartment in Chicago felt less like home and more like a cage. My phone lit up nonstop with calls from my parents, but I sent each one to voicemail. Jason's text popped up. "Emily, think about what's best for the family." A sharp laugh escaped my lips. In this family, what's best for the family always translated to, Emily sacrifices everything so the rest of us can relax. Frustrated, I sank into the corner of my couch and called Megan, my oldest friend, the one person who understood this never-ending tug-of-war. "Let me guess," Megan said as soon as she picked up. "They're trying to drag you back into caretaker duty again, aren't they?" "This time's different," I said softly. I finally told them no. "I'm done." "That's a huge step, Megan said warmly. "You've always been too quick to give in. You deserve to have your own life." I exhaled, tension flooding out of my shoulders. They won't stop calling, though. It's exhausting. And now Dad keeps ringing me nonstop. "Don't answer," Megan advised firmly. "You already gave your answer. They're just pushing, hoping you'll fold." "Thanks, Meg. I keep wondering if I'm being selfish." "You're not," Megan assured me. "You're a grown woman. They need to start respecting your limits." After we hung up, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Dad. I hesitated, then swiped to accept. "Dad, my answer hasn't changed," I said quickly. "Emily," his voice was measured, almost too calm, "we're only asking you to have a little heart for your family." My breath hitched. "You're calling me heartless? You're the ones dismissing my time and needs." Dad sighed. "Fine. We'll handle things on our own. But could you at least stop by in the morning? Grandma would love to see you." I paused, wary of the sudden compromise. It seemed suspicious, yet a small part of me felt relieved. "Okay," I agreed cautiously. "I'll come by in the morning. But no tricks, Dad." "I mean it." "Thank you, Emily." When I hung up, a tight knot formed in my stomach. He'd given in way too easily. Still, I was proud of myself for setting firm boundaries for once. Over the following weeks, I continued caring for Grandma during the days, but no one brought up the concert again. I felt cautiously hopeful, as if maybe this time things would be different. The night before the concert, I sent a quick text, "I'll be over around 11 a.m. tomorrow." Mom's reply came almost instantly. "Perfect, Emily. We can't wait to see you." A small smile tugged at my lips. My family relationships were tangled at best, but maybe, just maybe, I could enjoy a short visit with Grandma without being roped into more. The next morning, I was up early. I carefully packed a bag with her medications, her favorite jasmine tea, an audiobook she loved, and some recent photos from my photography job. As I drove through the snowy streets toward the suburbs, I felt an unexpected calm. Just a quick visit, a few smiles with Grandma, and then back home to the quiet sanctuary I'd fought so hard to protect. But when I pulled into the driveway, my gut twisted. Mom and Dad's SUV was gone. Jason's car was nowhere to be seen. The porch light was on, and the curtains were open, but the house was eerily still. I climbed out of the car slowly, the crunch of snow under my boots the only sound as I approached the front door, my overnight bag slung over my shoulder. Something wasn't right. When I pressed the doorbell, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoed from inside. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing my grandmother. Her face lit up, and her eyes sparkled with delight. "Sophie," she exclaimed, wrapping her thin arms around me. "You're here." "Of course, Grandma," I murmured, returning her embrace gently. "Good morning. Where's everyone?" With surprising clarity, she replied, "They all left. They went to the Springsteen concert, just like they planned." A month earlier, I had walked into Grandma's room with her evening pills and found her sitting by the window, pen poised over a notebook. The moment she saw me, she quickly closed it. "Sophie, could you close the door?" she asked, her tone sharper, more grounded than usual. Puzzled, I nodded and quietly shut it. "Sit with me," she said softly, patting the seat beside her. As I sank down, she clasped my hand tightly. "I need to tell you something important," she whispered. Her gaze was sharp, her voice steady, a striking contrast to her usual forgetfulness. "I don't have dementia." I blinked, stunned. "What?" "I know you're surprised," she said with a faint smile. "After my hip surgery, I was confused for a little while. But I recovered. I just never told anyone." "Why would you hide that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Your parents and Jason and Natalie," she sighed. "I wanted to see how they'd treat me. And how they'd treat you. They think I'm clueless, so they talk freely around me." Reaching into a drawer, Grandma pulled out a folder and placed it in my lap. "They're planning to leave me with you while they enjoy their weekend away," she explained calmly. I felt the color drain from my face. "Don't worry," Grandma said with a glint in her eye. "I've known about their little plan for weeks. They talk about it right in front of me because they assume I can't understand." "Why tell me now?" I whispered. "I was waiting for the right moment," she said, squeezing my hand. "Sophie, they've used you for years, and it's time you stood up for yourself." That's when she outlined her plan, down to the smallest detail. I would show up as they expected, but once they left, we would send a message they couldn't ignore. The day arrived. As I helped Grandma settle into the living room, I noticed the house was spotless. Her medications were laid out neatly on the end table, and breakfast dishes were stacked by the sink. On the dining table, I spotted a folded note. "Dear Sophie, we left around 9 a.m. Grandma's had breakfast. Meals for the next 3 days are in the fridge. Instructions are on the counter. Please give her the 2 p.m. medication. Thank you. Love, Mom." I felt a wave of anger rush through me. Stepping into the kitchen, I pulled out my phone and dialed Mom. It rang several times before she picked up. "Oh, Sophie, you made it. How's Grandma? What on earth are you thinking?" I burst out, my voice shaking with fury. "How could you pull something like this after I specifically said no?" "Sophie, calm down," Mom cooed in that maddeningly sweet voice. "We knew you'd come through. You're always so dependable." "I'm not your on-call nurse," I snapped. "I agreed to come this morning, not to stay for 3 days. But you're there now, right?" Mom said smoothly. "You can't just leave her alone. She needs you." My voice turned icy. "Do you have any idea what happens if I report this to Adult Protective Services?" A sharp intake of breath came from the other end. "You wouldn't." "Try me," I said coldly. "You have 1 hour to get back here, or I make the call. Do you understand what happens if I contact Elder Services?" I said sharply into the phone. I heard Mom suck in a sharp breath on the other end. "You wouldn't go that far," she stammered. "Watch me," I said coolly. "If you're not back in an hour, that's exactly what I'll do." "Wait, Sophie, don't do this," Mom pleaded, her voice shaky. "We're still outside the arena. The show hasn't started yet. Then you have time to turn around." "I'm only staying here for 1 more hour," I repeated firmly and hung up. As I returned to the living room, Grandma's eyes twinkled with excitement. "Is everything ready?" she asked, a mischievous smile curling her lips. "Of course," I grinned. "The California coast is calling our names." From her bag, Grandma pulled out a thick envelope and handed it to me with a gentle but steady hand. "I wanted to wait until we were ready to leave before showing you this," she said quietly. As I opened it, my jaw fell slack in disbelief. Inside was her new will, one that left her beachfront home, substantial savings, and a well-managed investment account entirely to me. "Grandma, words escaped me. "It's the right thing, Sophie," she said with quiet conviction. "I worked with an attorney months ago. I had medical evaluations done and recorded every conversation your parents had around me. They tried to paint me as incapable, but they underestimated me." Her clear medical records and carefully saved audio clips had sealed the legal case. Their attempts to control her estate had cost them their claim to it. By the time we boarded the flight to Los Angeles, I knew my parents were likely just discovering the empty house and a handwritten note on the kitchen table. Dear Susan and Mark, I am of sound mind. Sophie and I are heading out for a long and well-deserved vacation. All legal matters regarding my estate are settled. With love, Mom. As we sat by the ocean a few days later, feeling the sun on our skin and the sand between our toes, Grandma and I finally exhaled. Free from years of unspoken obligations and suffocating family dynamics, we were ready to start fresh. When I returned home to my Chicago apartment a week later, I spent the morning sipping coffee, answering messages from friends, and ignoring the barrage of texts from my family. After everything they had done, I needed space and peace. But that afternoon, scrolling through Facebook, a familiar anger bubbled up. Mom had posted, "Heartbreaking holiday. Some people just don't understand the importance of family anymore." My poor mother was left confused and alone. I never imagined family could be so cold. The comments poured in. So sorry, Susan. What a shame young people these days have no sense of duty. Leaving an elderly parent alone? That's disgraceful. My fingers trembled as I took screenshot after screenshot. She hadn't used my name, but everyone knew exactly who she meant, and the story was completely twisted. Fueled by frustration, I opened a blank post and began typing. Let's set the record straight. Yesterday, I arrived as promised, only to find my family had left for a 3-day Springsteen concert, expecting me to care for my grandmother full-time, despite my clear refusal. I warned them I'd call adult services for elder neglect if they didn't return. Now, I'm being labeled selfish. Here's the truth. They never respected my time or boundaries. I am not their built-in caretaker whenever they want an escape. True family is built on respect, not convenience. I hovered over the post button for a moment, took a deep breath, and hit publish. That the circumstances were more serious than I had imagined. Ms. Bennett, this is far beyond just a family squabble, Attorney Caroline Ruiz explained firmly across the table. Your parents, your brother, and his wife have engaged in repeated psychological harm. The public smears they've posted online could easily fall under defamation, and their abandonment of your grandmother raises possible elder neglect charges. I sat quietly, the weight of it all settling in my chest. Should I really take legal action against my own family? I whispered, feeling torn between guilt and determination. Caroline leaned forward gently. We can start with a formal cease and desist notice. It will warn them that if the harassment continues, we will escalate to formal legal action. I gave a quiet nod, and that afternoon, Caroline's office sent out the letters to my parents, my brother Jason, and his wife Natalie. But instead of bringing calm, the letters sparked an eruption. The next day, my mother unleashed a fiery post online, claiming I was a selfish daughter intent on tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding about Grandma. My father chimed in on his account, calling me unstable and accusing me of fabricating drama. Jason and Natalie piled on, branding me an attention seeker and painting the entire situation as some twisted exaggeration. Their hostility left me no room to retreat. I met with Caroline again and, with a heavy heart, agreed to file a civil suit for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Emily, Caroline said softly as we finalized the paperwork, I understand this is painful, but it's the right step to protect both yourself and your grandmother. The day we filed the case, my emotions swirled, sadness, anger, relief, all tangled together. After all, these were the people I'd called family my entire life. But their actions weren't momentary lapses. They were part of a much deeper pattern of exploitation, disrespect, and dismissal that I could no longer ignore. Grandma Margaret became my unwavering supporter during those grueling months. She not only stood by me but also offered to be our key witness. I've been keeping track of their behavior for years, she admitted quietly one evening. I let them believe my memory was worse than it really was, just to see who truly cared. The legal proceedings stretched on for months, slowly dismantling whatever was left of our family's public image. My parents, Jason and Natalie, cut all contact with me, and extended relatives were forced into uncomfortable positions, some taking their side, others quietly supporting me and Grandma. Caroline's team assembled a powerful case. They documented the years of mistreatment, the concert day deception, and the cruel online posts that followed. But it was Grandma's clear-eyed testimony that struck the hardest blow. She described in vivid detail how they had sidelined me for years, depending on me as their fallback while they enjoyed their freedom. What sealed the case, though, were the very posts and private messages my family had sent, filled with dismissive, mocking comments about me and callous plans for Grandma's care. Their own words became the strongest evidence against them. When the judge delivered the ruling, it was swift and unequivocal. The court finds that the conduct of Susan Bennett, Mark Bennett, Jason Bennett, and Natalie Bennett amounts to targeted harassment and has caused significant emotional harm to Emily Bennett, the judge declared from the bench. A protective order was issued, financial damages were awarded, and the family was ordered to issue a public apology approved by the court, stripping away the last of their public denial. As I walked out of the courthouse that afternoon, the crisp autumn air hit my face, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could truly breathe. The judge's voice rang through the courtroom, steady and resolute. Family bonds must be grounded in respect. The defendant's behavior shows a clear violation of this principle. Moreover, their neglect of Margaret Bennett, despite repeatedly highlighting her cognitive difficulties, reflects an alarming disregard for her well-being. As we stepped out of the courthouse, a strange mix of emotions washed over me, relief mingled with sorrow. I had stood my ground and protected my boundaries, but the cost was the fracture of nearly half my family ties. "You did what had to be done," Grandma murmured softly, her fingers wrapping around mine with unexpected firmness. "Time may soften some of these hurts, but never surrender your dignity, not for anyone, even those you love." In the months that followed the ruling, the ripple effects on my parents and brother were impossible to ignore. Word of the lawsuit spread quickly through our town, amplified by local newspapers and social media. My father, once a respected partner at his law firm, was quietly pushed into early retirement as longtime clients began asking for other attorneys. My mother, who held a senior role at a regional nonprofit, resigned when board members stopped inviting her to meetings and social functions. Jason and Natalie, who ran a small but successful interior design business, saw their client base evaporate almost overnight. Prospective clients Googled them and were met with headlines about elder neglect and harassment. Within 6 months, they were forced to sell their upscale home and relocate to a modest condo across town. Meanwhile, Grandma moved into my 2-bedroom apartment, where we worked together to make the space comfortable and accessible without sacrificing her independence. Encouraged by her constant support, I finally enrolled in the creative writing program I had long dreamed of joining. A year later, everything looked different. I reduced my freelance editing hours to focus on writing my first novel and continued taking workshops to sharpen my skills. Grandma, full of life in our cozy home, launched an online forum where older adults could share poetry, artwork, and essays. While the sting of betrayal sometimes surfaced in quiet moments, I reminded myself that I had chosen a path of self-respect. Over coffee with Megan one afternoon, I confided, it might sound cold, but putting myself first was the only way forward. Though the scars remain, I now walk forward with certainty, knowing that Grandma and I have built a circle rooted in respect, not obligation. Together, we prove that no one should have to tolerate exploitation, even from those who share their blood.